What's up, guys? Taylor Payton here from thebeginnerdrawingcourse.com, and today we are going to be drawing my character Rye in 4 different styles. So basically, I'm just going to be going in, drawing Rye once from imagination, meaning using no reference. Then I'm going to be taking that imagination drawing and drawing 2 different versions of that, kind of simplifying down and adding a little more style. Just more anime-inspired stuff, I guess. And then at the very end, we will take a reference picture on my other monitor here, or rather my iPad. And then I will draw him one more time, looking at a photo, so I can kind of close the gap between my style and adding a little more realism, going a little more Western with it, as opposed to rocking over to the East. But you'll see here that I'm just making the first drawing, and then I go ahead, lower the opacity on that, and start drawing the second drawing on top of it. Very basic, very useful technique, especially when you're working from imagination and your first sketch is just to understand where you're going to place your shapes, where you're going to create and design the different alignment and proportions of the character's face. And like I said, there's plenty of YouTube videos discussing that, and I might make my own version at some point. It feels a little redundant just because people have done it so much and everybody uses the Loomis method or some variant thereof. But basically what I'm doing here is just trying to get a feel for how to use line in different ways, how to use shape design and stylization in different ways, and how to use reference to bring things to a different finish as well. And that's all the stuff that I cover in my beginner drawing course. If you're interested, you can check that out in the description box. There's an 8-week version, a 12-week version, and recently a 16-week version that I'm very proud of, and that'll help you level up with assignments and structure. So it'll really help to augment what I'm going to be telling you here, or rather give you a much more solid basis. But pretty much what I like to do is just draw my stuff once and then draw it again with more intentional shape design behind it, not just earmarking everything like the previous sketch. And like I said, this one's from my imagination, so this is sort of where my style is at right now, if you can call it that. This is sort of the shape design that I default to. I spend a good amount of time on the eyes. I like to create really interesting little occlusions here and there, like by the ear, underneath the bottom lip there. And I like to wrap forms around the character's trap muscles or neck muscles, whether they are male or female, doesn't matter. That's just kind of how I roll. And then I like to have a fair amount of detail for the hair, so you'll see there's a lot of interesting shapes going on there. I would say that it's kind of verging on semi-realism, and it's sort of a Western and Eastern hybrid, so some comic stuff, some anime manga stuff, kind of mashed into where I currently sit right now when stuff comes off the top of my head. So that, is basically where this drawing kind of ended up, and it's coming to an end of this first demo right now. What I like to do is just keep flipping the canvas and continuing to refine certain parts, add a little more detail here and there, kind of play with the expression, move things around a little bit for better placement, because I'm fond of the proportions, meaning the relative size of the different features next to one another. And it really is working for me, so I basically am happy with it at this point. I'm using pretty succinct mark making just to shadow some of the cast shadow around the nose as well as the eyebrows, just because those are darker than the character's hair. And then just a little bit on the side there where you can see his hair turning the form, like falling behind the cheekbone, so that I have just a little bit of a value separation. Again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, the beginner drawing course is a great way to have a much better idea. You'll understand the fundamentals more and be able to kind of fly and play a little better. But this is drawing number 2 starting right now. And this one is basically going to be the same as the first one, just with a little less detail and a little more simplification as far as the shapes go. And then the drawing after this has even more simplification and even less detail. So you can think of things in terms of certain vectors or sliders, parameters, however you want to parse it. And drawings are either going to have more detail, which means more marks, more lines, more kind of subdivisions of the planes that you'll find in the face or on the body, more shading, more noise visually in general, or you're going to have, drawings that opt for more shape design maybe, meaning that you have these shapes that make up the eyes, nose, mouth, eyebrows, hair, neck. And those things are basically geometric primitives that we then simplify to help create, this is probably reflecting a lot, I'm going to take these off. We use those to simplify and figure out, how to draw stuff from our imagination. In this case, I'm going a little more anime than my style, just pushing those larger eyes, more simplified nose, not as much in terms of subdividing the lips and creating more form and kind of texture there. And then this last one, it's almost like a Pokemon style is what I think of usually, just the more simplified animes. It's a very animation-friendly style, and that means that since there's not a lot of detail, it's easier to frame by frame it. And that's an animation term for, redrawing every drawing in order to create an effect. When they're played rapidly next to one another, it creates the effect or the illusion of motion. And I'm just going in, copying the shapes, simplifying them down even more, not adding as many folds, not adding as many details, enlarging the eyes even further, stylizing the eyebrows even more, making the mouth even smaller, making the nose even smaller. And of course, it's like that's basically anime in a nutshell if you want to get really grossly general with it. It's just smaller nose, bigger eyes, and simpler shapes. And then you have the final version here where it takes the most construction because it's more realistic, and therefore we need to be more careful with details. There's got to be more scaffolding underneath for us to understand what we're going to be doing. And so, of course, we're not just going to do one drawing like I did with the stylized version and the super stylized version. We're going to have a much more robust undersketch that'll allow us to then have a better idea of where we're going to head with the second drawing, much like you saw with the first one. So again, I'm looking at my monitor over there, which of course you can't see, and I just found a picture that was some male model on the internet, approximately the same angle that I needed, and I just worked off of that, meaning I constructed the first drawing off of that reference, and then I went in and zoomed in a little further so the details are going to be more fine. And then I made sure that I was going to stick closer to that reference and not go all off the top of my head in terms of creating and kind of making up my own shapes. I was trying to take down the shapes I was seeing, and I was also being more careful to subdivide the forms that you're seeing on the face with more subtle line work, softer lines. I did it just a little bit on my, from my head version. Like there's just a tiny mark on his nose that shows you that the bridge has a surface plane that is separated from, say, the two planes of the nostril. But I did it much more notably on the drawing that I'm going from reference on. And I do that same kind of technique with the neck, a little bit more with the ear. And since all the shapes are already there for me, I just need to take them down, make sure that they're placed properly, make sure that they're proportionate to one another, and give them an appropriate value, meaning, a relative separation in regards to black, white, and everything in between. So that pretty much is how I like to kind of parse out styles, how I can play with one character and leverage several different fundamentals in order to kind of flow between these different visuals and kind of feel more comfortable in any style, really. So I hope this was helpful. I hope it helped you think more about your own style, your own techniques, using reference, not using reference, developing your imagination, all that good stuff. Again, if you want to check out the beginnerdrawingcourse.com, I have courses for that sort of stuff, even free lessons if you sign up for the mailing list. I'll just say thanks for watching, happy drawing, hit the like button, and I'll see you next time. Yeah, I totally knew that there were weird light shapes all over my face the whole time I was recording this. Definitely.